There's some craziness going on in the world. Like in this moment, it feels kind of normal. You know, I'm sitting in my house, you're sitting in your office, and it feels kind of normal, but it's not. And lots of people are scared, and lots of people are confused, and lots of people are in denial. And the truth is, I use these three words very often these days. I don't know. Like people ask me, when is this going to be over? I don't know. What should I do? I don't know. Do I have it? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know.
Do you know?
I know some of those things.
Well,
In
that's
general.
why I invited people in this 55 days group to ask questions to you. And I got a list of about 70. I think there were 77. And I sent you a few.
I've got 6 of them.
Okay. Well, I didn't want to send you 77.
Good. That's a good choice.
I filtered them. Phil, I filtered them. Get it?
Are you taping this so you can play it later?
Yes.
All right. Do you want me to read the question?
How about this? I'll read the question. I'll do the easy part. I'll read the question and you do the answer.
Okay. If there is one, I will give one.
Okay. And you could use the words I don't know. Like that's allowed right now. Okay?
Yes.
Here we go. This is not me asking. I'm reading the question that came from, should I say the name? No, I won't say the name. Okay, first one. I am an athlete, work out every day, and compete in races and power events. I'm trying to observe the stay-at-home guidelines, but want to get out and run, challenge myself, and find different ways to exercise. I live in Florida, train without a shirt, and I sweat a lot. This is a man, by the way. I noticed that families, bike riders, and some seniors around my neighborhood get nervous when they see me coming. I haven't been wearing a mask or anything, but I think I keep a safe distance. Do you think I'm putting myself or anyone else at risk by running by them or even exercising in areas where people pass by if I'm hitting it hard and sweating?
So, good question. He is putting himself at risk if he is doing a consistent, intense endurance exercise. And we know from previous studies that those endurance exercise athletes are decreasing plasma concentrations of glutamine. They're decreasing their natural killer cells. I'm actually reading part of the study we're doing with intense exercising athletes, endurance athletes, because we found that marathon, half marathon, triathlon swimmers were getting a lot more upper respiratory tract infections. And what they found was, I will tell you what they found. Intense exercise was causing changes in the immune system, such as a decrease in the blood concentrations of interleukin 1, interleukin 6, tumor necrosis factor alpha, as well as a marked decrease in the number of natural killer cells, which means, and the expression of things called TLRs, toll-like receptors, on monocytes, and macrophages are also reduced. In other words, those changes were a sign of immunodepression in endurance athletes. So it's not so much he's putting other people at risk if he's keeping a safe distance. And as far as we know, the virus does not pass by sweat. He's putting himself more at risk if he's not boosting his own immune system beforehand and consistently. And that's part of the study, is we're using the bioactive silver hydrosol in endurance athletes because we know that there's going to be some immunodepression, and we're looking to see at what level the bioactive silver hydrosol will boost their immune system because of its immune modulation.
You know, there are a lot of questions that could come up just from this one, but lots of people are feeling very stressed right now, you know? And I think when you take somebody who needs that, and I understand this, but when you need to get outside, you need to move, you need to exercise, the stress of not doing it may be worse for suppressing immune system. So we got to find some kind of balance, right?
Again, it depends on quantity, on quality. If you want to do a light jog for a couple of miles, it's not doing what their studies of, let's see, 8, 9, 10 kilometers a day. We know people who are running 5 miles a day, 10 miles a day.
And I also want to point out, he's not putting himself at risk because he's around people who might have the virus.
No.
You're saying anytime he might be lowering his own immune system, and if there's greater risk of catching something, that wouldn't only apply during the season, correct?
Right, right. He is at greater risk if he is doing, did he say he was an endurance athlete? He did not say he was an endurance athlete. Endurance athletes are putting themselves at risk if they're not boosting their own immune system. With those things from some of the other questions, which are the vitamin C, we know is a short-term antiviral, and you can do that until you get bowel tolerance, actually. You know, some people, bowel tolerance of vitamin C is 4 grams a day, 2 grams twice a day. Some people can, I know people who are going to 10, 15, 20 grams a day of vitamin C, and they are not getting grumbling or gas or loose stool from it. So they're actually using it all. Vitamin D, 200 genes get upregulated and boosting your immune system. And the other things, elderberry, zinc. You know, we are listening to people tell us to take chloroquine, which has, you know, not been tested, but it is what's called an ionophore. It moves ions in through cell membrane. And when you take chloroquine, if you are taking your zinc, which we all need anyway, unless you've done a plasma test, a blood test to see if you have enough, it will bring more zinc into your cytoplasm to keep the virus from attaching to the human cells. That's one of the ways that chloroquine works. But I would have people take their zinc and their selenium, D, C, elderberry, hydration. People go, yeah, hydration. And I saw your formula, your body weight times 0.55. Yeah, I'm not doing that math. What I do is I take half my body weight and I multiply it by ounces. So if you're 200 pounds, yeah, it's 100 times 30 cc's, which is 3 liters a day, is your minimum liquid. And you need to be hydrated, not only for
your minimum, you're saying. That's your
minimum. Some people go by how clear the urine is, or if it's yellow, you know, you're not drinking enough, especially nowadays. You need that water because
But also, if he lives in Florida and he's working out and sweating that much, you go way beyond the minimum.
He's losing it. He's losing it. And you need that water because the virus really loves to get into the system by going up your nose. And the only way to keep the virus from getting into the epithelium is to make that lovely thing called mucus. And you want serous, liquidy mucus to keep the virus away from the epithelium. How do you get thin, serous, liquidy mucus? You have to drink your water. So hopefully, if you explain that to people, you need your hydration to keep the virus away from your mucous membranes, literally from your mucous membranes. Hopefully people will do that.
Okay, and I also want to say to the guy who asked this question, I don't think what Dr. Blyweiss is saying is you should stop doing what you're doing. Maybe you should just reduce it, because it's not like the virus is going to chase you because you're sweating, and it's not like it's going to jump off you onto other people because you're sweating, right?
Right.
So find that balance between what you need to do to stay feeling good about yourself and not overdoing it.
Get out in the early morning sun where you get your vitamin D naturally, and, you know, do your light jog for a half an hour.
Have you been to a grocery store? You're in Sarasota, right?
I have, yes, I have. Mm-hmm.
Is it normal, or is it like people wearing masks and gloves?
People are wearing masks, people are wearing gloves, which I appreciate, especially if there's a chance that they were exposed, because they're not wearing a mask to prevent themselves from getting the virus. I want them to wear a mask so that I don't get the virus.
Right, but you know, it's really, I would say 2 days ago was the day it really struck me, that it just felt different. And I walked into the grocery store and they had masks and they had gloves, and some people were like bandaged up like mummies, but they're fearful. You know, you could see it. And it's also weird when people have masks on, you can't see their facial expression. So normally you walk by somebody, you smile, there's none of that. It's like a zombie feeling, you know? And if you're coming down an aisle, they back away. So I can understand when people see an athlete running toward them, they get that fear. But the truth is, they're not going to catch it from his sweat, right?
No, if he's 6, 7, 8 feet away, one, no, not from your sweat, and two, even from breathing, unless he's sneezing and coughing as he's passing right in front of you, and you're breathing in it at the same time.
And
But
that would
again,
be true
remember,
for anybody, not necessarily just a sweaty athlete.
right. I mean, if the banks were open, it would be okay to go into a bank with a mask and gloves for the first time ever.
Hmm.
Right?
Maybe I'll try that.
Yeah, don't do that.
It gave me a
So
lot
we
of
went on,
money. I don't know why.
we,
All right,
see,
number two.
we did
Which
that.
supplements, if any, are going to work for someone who has the virus already? And then she goes on to say, my cousin seems to have a mild case, but tested positive and doesn't want to go the drug route.
So this is someone who tested positive, has a mild case, and it appears their immune system is doing its job. So they should support their immune system for those other supplements that I told them to do. If they're looking to actually kill virus particles, you know what I would recommend. I can't say the name, but you know that I'm recommending what I take, what my daughter's son-in-law and 5-year-old grandson take, my friends and patients take, which is the bioactive silver hydrosol, which is getting increasingly difficult to find now. No matter that people are going online and seeing some of the fraudulent, specious, negative comments, which have nothing to do with the bioactive silver hydrosol, but all the other fraudulent stuff that people are attempting to serve out there. You know, it's funny, no matter how they slice it, it's still baloney that what they're talking about, the negative effects of silver. It's not, it's the large particle, non-ionic. It's not pure, there's no quality. They don't make it in a GMP, NSF facility, but it's all being painted or tarred with the same brush.
Do people eat bologna anymore? Like when I was a kid, you know, kids would bring their bologna sandwich. Do kids eat bologna anymore? I don't even know. Do they?
Yeah,
They do?
yeah. Nice organic bologna.
From the bologna tree.
From the bologna tree in Bologna, Italy, yes.
Number three, this one comes from a nurse. I am a nurse. I work in a hospital, although not directly with patients. The amazing thing is, and honestly, when I read this, I found this interesting. Nobody is talking to the staff about immune support. They're only worried about protective equipment. What can I share with the staff as a self-protection health plan?
Well, the second line here, nobody is talking to the staff about immune support. That's amazing that they don't know, either don't know anything about immune support, or since there are no FDA approved drugs directly for immune support, they're not even going to talk about it. It's as if it doesn't exist. Those things that we know for immune support that you've mentioned, a healthier diet. I think people need to be reminded that 70% of their immune system is in their gut. So they need to keep their gut healthy, the gut microbiome healthy with the right foods. The Cochrane Review, which is a charity out of England, did 22 separate research on articles that they found that vitamin C and zinc did okay with virus, but 30% decrease in viruses that cause colds were decreased by 30% with probiotics, because the probiotic helped their gut microbiome, and that helped their immune system. So you want to eat your 75, 80, 85% organic vegan diet with your choice of protein, hopefully at every meal. And you want to take your water, and people discount meditation and mindful breathing. One of the greatest things to decrease your stress cortisol and to improve your immune system.
Yeah, no, Ariel in this group is leading people through meditations. We're giving them everything we can right in this 55 days group.
Isn't that interesting? There's nothing online to tell you what drugs to take, really, except for chloroquine from a doctor. Everything out there is about boosting your immune system, your mind, body, strengthening your immune, strengthening certain supplements that we need. It's integrative.
I want to ask you, were you honestly surprised by her comment that they're not doing anything for the staff to teach them? You're not surprised?
No, not at all.
I mean, you say it's amazing, but the truth is, you know the world of hospitals well enough.
It's amazing, but not surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, next one. I'm taking.
I sent you in an email the practical guidelines that that go along with CDC guidelines for protecting your health if you want to share that.
Good.
It's in your email.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Sure.
Next one says, I'm taking, and there's a list of medications, metformin, lisinopril, and a statin drug, right?
Yeah.
And have been for about 2 years. I'm down to about 5 days of pills left, and I've already ordered the refills online. I haven't left my house. I'm 68 years old and not super healthy. I'm concerned about going to the pharmacy. I just wondered if I'm going to start exercising and eating like they recommend in this group. Is this a good time to try to get off these meds?
Well, one, there shouldn't be an issue going to the pharmacy. Two, unless you speak to your doc about this. I mean, I'm looking at these meds. One is a statin drug for his cholesterol. That's not going to be affecting him so much if he temporarily gets off of it, which obviously I can't recommend that. But metformin is referring to his probable type 2 diabetes, which puts him at risk, the diabetes. And then the lisinopril is an ACE inhibitor. Now, that's a complicated answer because there were 2 studies and then 3 studies out of England. There was a Lancet letter about the ACE inhibitors are bad for you. The angiotensin binders, receptor binders are bad for you. Then it was that they were good for you. It seems that the virus needs the ACE2 to bind onto your lung tissue and then to get inside. So it may be that an angiotensin receptor blocker is good to take if you have it, and that's the losartan, irbesartan type drugs, things that end in sartan. And then the ACE inhibitors, lisinopril, which he's taking, may also help. But we don't know yet. We don't know yet. This stuff is 2 weeks old, and it changes every single day. Now we're finding that the virus perhaps could stay on certain surfaces for 2 weeks.
I would say, I'm going to venture to guess that you would say that even though the metformin and the statin drug are not immediate life-preserving drugs,
Correct.
it's probably not a good time to decide to go off multiple drugs all at once on your own.
That's
right?
correct, yes.
But it is a good time to start to recognize that if you take control of your own health, maybe in the long run, you don't need those
You
drugs.
need the simvastatin, the lisinopril, and the metformin.
Right.
I hope
That's blood sugar.
I hope that's what happens from all this. That people realize that if they just regain their health sovereignty, that they will they won't need those medications.
That's the name of your next book. Regain Your Health Sovereignty. That's great.
Okay, I thought it's never one thing.
Well, that's why you need 2 books. The first one is It's Never One Thing, and the second one is the Sovereignty book.
I'm as good at writing that as you are on technology.
Okay, I'll write the book, you handle the technology.
I can do that. I can make the phone calls.
Dr. Blyweiss, is
Yeah.
there any real medical evidence to the suggestions Phil, Kristen, and the trainers here make? It's funny. It's funny because I'll let you answer it, and then I'll say why it's funny. I know exercise is good for you, and eating junk food is bad for you.
He answered
But
this
I
question.
just wanted to hear from a doctor whether the whole thing makes sense. It's easy for the fitness junkies to do this, but I guess I need some convincing.
So I would say that 100 years ago, when we didn't have to distinguish food organic from non-organic because everything was organic. 100 years ago, or even 150 years ago, when the top causes of death were falling out of a tree, getting shot, getting stabbed, typhus, pneumonia, exploded appendixes, right? Appendices, that we didn't hear about chronic degenerative disease per se. Even back in the 50s, that shows you how old I am, even back in the 50s, when we knew it had a neighbor or somebody who had died, and we asked what they died from, people would whisper the answer, cancer, or they had MS. Why? Because people weren't getting it. It only occurred in the past 2 generations or so. So we did not genetically change in the last 70 years. What are the things that changed in the last 70 years? our diet,
Food.
lifestyle, and environment, right?
Food,
Okay.
air,
So,
water,
so, so
lifestyle.
exercise, good food has always been good for you. In fact, it's probably more important now than it was back then because everybody ate well and everybody walked. Everybody walked everywhere.
I want to thank this person for asking the question, but doesn't it reflect an interesting attitude? It's like, I know it's good and I know bad food is bad, but I got to hear the doctor say it. You're a doctor, but I will say it's probably not wise to live your life believing that everything every doctor says is exactly what you should do.
So, yes, I agree with that because our doctors of today, and even the ones who are in their 40s, 50s, are being trained in the guidebook, in the cookbook, that if this, then that. If you have these symptoms, this is the code you put down for the insurance companies on your electronic medical record, not for you, but for the health insurance companies. And these are the drugs you will give. And no matter what happens, you are safe because you're doing what 51% of the medical community is doing, which is following what we told you to give for this symptom panoply that we're naming. And we're blaming what you have on those symptoms. And we're going to tame those symptoms that we name that disease by this drug that we sell to you. So instead of the old name it, tame it, and blame it, we're looking at going upstream and trying to prevent it. So I thank him for asking that question too.
But I'm trying to say this without bias. Don't you have to have your head in the sand to question whether supportive exercise and supportive eating are the right formula?
No, because that's not what we've been taught over the past few generations. I mean, I have adults that I know who remember fondly and still do eat their Captain Crunch for breakfast, which is refined
with crunch berries.
With what?
Crunch berries.
Yeah, I hated that stuff.
They came out with Captain Crunch with crunch berries. They were like these round little crunchy berries, and
great.
I think they came off the crunch berry tree.
Great.
Yeah.
So that I remember. I mean, the advertisements growing up, Saturday morning cartoons was all about Captain Crunch, Cocoa Krispies, Cocoa Puffs. We and our children have been trained to accept advertising as reality. And
do you know to this day where young moms spend most of their time in the grocery store? Which two aisles? The juice aisle and the cereal aisle.
So we make our kids weaker and sicker so that they need more medication.
But the boxes say with antioxidants.
Oh, yes. And that's a good point. I would say that probably one of the best things that people would take would be the brightly colored fruits and vegetables to get the polyphenols, flavonoids, basic antioxidants into their body to help their immune system.
And that doesn't apply to the marshmallows and Lucky Charms, right?
It depends if those are red and yellow and orange and purple.
Some people would eat the marshmallows first and then they'd be left with all the cereal. I try to balance it out.
Great.
Yeah. Here's the last one. I heard you talk about silver on the video with Phil. I researched it online. This is interesting too. I have to tell you, this is a little bit of a peeve of mine. There was a day, now some of you may not know this, but there was a day that we didn't have an internet. There was a time that we didn't have Google. Hard for many people to believe, but that time existed. So if you wanted to do research, you would go to this very archaic building, and it was called a library. And they had books, and they had a system of numbers, and you'd spend time there. It wasn't quick. And you don't like read one page from a book and then run and get another one. You would literally research. You could even get microfiche and sit at an archaic computer, and you'd wind the thing and look at research studies. That was research. But if you go on Google and type something in, you're not researching. You're looking at half the time marketing and advertising, and it's cleverly packaged as good information. So anyway.
I'm going to refer back to that statement when you finish the question.
Okay. So I heard you talk about silver on the video with Phil. I researched it online. The online makes me feel like, I don't know if it was really research, but okay. Researched it online and found very mixed opinions with a lot of references to it being a scam. I'm not doubting you, but I wanted to know if it's something I should use always, how much, and where can I find some real evidence that I'm not just wasting my money?
So in 1996, two researchers, it was Feng, F-E-N-G, and Bowen, B-O-W-E-N, came out with a paper that said these silver compounds, silver salts, aren't good. They can give you argyria, which is blue skin, a totally benign condition. And the FDA used that paper that I read with no references, with general vague opinions, and put out their FDA 1999 guide that said silver has no place in medicine, unless the fact that we're still using it as eye drops for newborn infants from at-risk mothers so that the kids don't have, they don't get blindness from sexually transmitted diseases coming through the birth canal. Oh, and by the way, we also use it in every burn unit in the world for burn patients' skins to prevent infection. And oh wait, we use it in catheters and IV tubing and endotracheal tubes because we know that silver is antimicrobial. But other than that, you shouldn't use silver. From this Feng and Bowen paper. What's interesting is that what I'm talking about is not those silver compounds, silver salts that are flooding the market, that are fraudulent. I'm talking about the bioactive silver hydrosol that wasn't even invented when the FDA came out with that statement. So they're using information from generations ago, from things that aren't what's available today. Addressing the thing about, I did some online research, mixed opinions with references there, and I've looked at them too because of what I'm doing now. And I was shocked and amazed that the marketing allows people to say the things they said with no references, no backup, except in one case, there's a company right after you Google the bioactive silver hydrosol that says, oh, it's about the particle size, not ionic silver. And oh, it's not about this. And I'm looking at this, and I know the science now behind it because of hundreds of hours of actually doing research and reading the papers, that for decades, we know how well it works. And what's the toxicity? To bacteria, to viruses, to fungi, very toxic. To mammalian and human cells, not so much. And when you take it at the levels that are recommended, you would need, I think it's with the 10 part per million bioactive or the 23 part per million, it takes 23 gallons in a day of the liquid where you might begin to get some toxicity. You know what would happen if you took 23 gallons of water where it's in? You would die. You would die, I think. You can only metabolize a liter of water an hour. So it's like 24 liters, which is 6 gallons. So you'd have to take more than 4 times the maximum amount a human being could possibly take and die before you got any toxicity from the 10 part per million, very small nanoparticled silver that I'm talking about. But it's all tarred with the same brush. So
if I could summarize what you're saying, size does matter.
Size does matter. Here, let me give you an analogy. I'll try a decent analogy you can put online. You want to pave your driveway, and you've got 20 tons of rock. Well, you can get 20 tons of boulders, which may be 5 or 6 boulders. Doesn't pave your driveway. If you crush it into fine gravel with more surface area, you can pave the entire driveway. So yes, size does matter. Small is better with the nanoparticles. They're a reservoir for the ionic silver, which is active to bind and get into viruses and fungi and bacteria, and continue their destructive mechanisms for those little prokaryotes, things that are not mammalian or human cells, because they don't have antioxidant enzyme systems. Hence why you should be taking your antioxidants. Anyway, that was just a train of consciousness to take
a good one.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to let you go back to work because while many people are unable to work, thankfully you're helping people. But I love this, that people have a resource because it's confusing, you know? Research is confusing. If you switch from CNN to Fox News, you are really jumping universes. Honestly, it's really hard to get accurate information. So I do understand why people are confused.
Yeah, and
And now we add
less so
fear.
online. Less so online.
What's that?
Less so online to get accurate information. Because as I've noticed when I read these things, you can say anything you want on there. And it's just, anyway, it's just amazing.
Well, I want to caution people, and I don't want to step on either side of a line here, but I do want to caution people because when you're in social media, you have friends very often who are like-minded. So when people post something to your friends group and they start to all respond, whether it's venomous towards somebody or an attack, and you go, everybody thinks that. Well, no, everybody in that social media segment thinks that, because if we went to someone else, they'd have the opposite. So I'm just saying you have to be careful, and I hate to say this, you got to be careful in what you believe right now. So the most important thing is stay safe. Let's put all the worry and conspiracy theory and all of that aside. Let's get through this difficult season. Take care of yourself. And what I love about this group is we're sharing with you strategies to stay healthy and fit and relatively sane through this process. And if everybody else is living in stress, you could come out of this 55 days better. In closing, Dr. Blyweiss, anything you want to say to wrap it up?
I would say that instead of listening to Dr. Google, they should look behind your left shoulder and listen to Dr. Pepper. They would get more information listening to Dr. Pepper and the Hearts Club Band than to Dr. Google in many instances.
All right, and I appreciate this. We'll be back to share more, and next time we'll do it as a Facebook Live. I'm promising.
Good
I'll
luck.
get a lesson or two. All right, see you soon, Doc.
All right,
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.